Hello, my name is Sean Wally and this is my final project for GPH-734. The aim of data analysis that we have been doing is to become familiar with how to check and clean data and knowing how to run regression methods. I found that by being very methodical, precisely following directions, and being somewhat OCD helped. Take your time. Creating the results tables involved properly displaying data that is easy and straightforward to understand when looking at a table. Understanding what the purpose of a linear regression is by examining the linear association between an exposure of interest and an outcome is critical. I need to understand what I am trying to do it. The instructions provided by our professor was extremely helpful, and I took her tips seriously and literally. Use consistent font and a consistent size. Make sure everything is lined up and centered. If it makes sense to you as you are creating your table, it is probably correct. According to the CDC, the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, BREFIS, is the nation's largest premier system of health-related telephone surveys that yearly has collected each state's data about U.S. residents' health-related risk behaviors, chronic health conditions, and use of preventative services since 1984. New York City is the first major city to set nutritional standards for all foods purchased and served in agency programs to reduce obesity in school children and results in seniors. All who consume publicly purchased food. The standards require only healthy beverages in schools, child care centers, after-school programs, homeless shelters, and hospitals. The aim of this project, BREFIS, by examining the real external data of consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages, SSBs, provided by BREFIS specifically from New York State from 2016. We are able to see the association between weekly consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages and body mass index with and without adjustment for covariates. The information allows us to propose a research intervention. The primary outcome for this analysis was body mass index, BMI. Survey respondents with outlying BMIs of underweight and extreme obesity were excluded. The BMI was organized into 3 levels: normal weight, overweight, and obese. For regression analysis, BMI was treated as a continuous variable. The exposure of interest in this analysis was consumption of SSBs and was further defined as the total weekly consumption of soda and fruit drinks. SSB consumption was organized into 4 categorical levels: none, 1, 1 through 7, over 7, sugar-sweetened beverages per week. The variables included sex, age, ethnicity, race, education, and income. Physical activity in the last 30 days was a binary categorical variable. History of cardiovascular disease was a binary categorical variable. History of diabetes diagnosis was a binary categorical variable. The relationship between SSB consumption and BMI was analyzed by crude linear regression and multiple linear regression, adjusted for covariates. This analysis was performed with Stata 15 IC statistical software. SSB consumption was stable across BMI categories. The mean age of overweight and obese respondents was equal to each other and higher by approximately 5 years relative to the normal BMI category. A higher percentage of black respondents fall into the obese BMI category. A lower frequency of obese BMI respondents was seen in the college-educated population relative to lower education levels. Income was relatively stable. Physical activity in the last 30 days was reported. Respondents in the obese BMI category shows a higher frequency of cardiovascular disease and much higher frequency of diabetes diagnosis. Come back and review the results more carefully on this slide. I'll give you a minute to look it over. This research shows a positive association between weekly consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages and body mass index, with and without adjustment for covariates. The effects of SSB consumption are approximately the same in respondents that consume 0 to 1 or greater than 7 sugar-sweetened beverages per week. As a public health concern, this data may indicate that any consumption of any SSBs may be unhealthy. This research also suggests that increased educational awareness is needed. Our data analysis indicates a positive association between weekly consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages and body mass index with and without adjustment for covariates. The target population is adolescents. Beverages play an important role in the diets of adolescents because they help to maintain hydration and can provide important nutrients such as calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin C. However, sugar-sweetened beverages provide calories with no beneficial nutrients. We specifically examined New York State. New York City has taken many aggressive political steps to mandate policies to address this issue by creating a more supportive school environment and creating pre-developed programs promoting a healthier diet and making drinking water more accessible, while prohibiting all forms of sugar-sweetened beverages. The goal is to encourage middle school students to teach themselves and each other the importance of reducing SSB consumption. Through the use of active learning instead of passive learning, students will be inspired to change their consumption habits on their own. Targets determinants at the individual, interpersonal, and community level of the socio-ecological model. Engage in an ongoing activity where students can address their own individual attitudes, become more autonomous, more self-confident, build, and aware of psychosocial factors leading to obesity. Individual students will receive social support from their peers at the same time by creating an ongoing dialogue in the school community, establishing a meaningful social context that can change this society's behavior. This is a form of social marketing because the activity influences the acceptability of changing the social ideas concerning the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. On this cultural level, the lessons learned should change social norms with regard to consuming SSBs and creating a degree of habit formation whereby the improved, healthier behavior becomes an intentional habit and occurs with automaticity. Here are some examples of posters around New York City. These are great examples of passive learning. Methods. Instead of taking health education classes about this topic or viewing advertising posters that promote drinking water instead of sugar-sweetened beverages, like the Rethink Your Drink campaign from the last slide, the participants would be recruited by enlisting all of the middle school student body at a specific school early in the school year. An initial food frequency questionnaire will be sent to their own school email to fill out. Anthropometric measurements can be self-reported to calculate BMI at this time as well. Another FFQ can be sent out at the end of the school year with anthropometric measurements self-reported again. This follows the subject prospectively over the school year and monitors the outcome of interest BMI. This is a fairly simple data collection method. Students will be asked in an all-school assembly to create their own posters that explain and discourage the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages for a school-wide competition. All posters will then be displayed throughout the school over the fall and spring semester, and students will vote on them. The top 10 finalists will then present their posters in an assembly towards the end of the academic year where the student body votes on the best poster. Potential outcome. This is a proposed non-randomized study design that can compare a middle school where an intervention can be performed with a middle school where there is no intervention. This design is performed prospectively and can suggest possible relationships between the intervention and the outcome. This can show the intervention's effectiveness, so one would be able to draw conclusions on causality. This project can be repeated each academic year and creates a natural follow-up that continues the social marketing aspect of changing behavior. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.